All right, so in this video, we're gonna run through 3 habits that I've developed that has got me straight A pluses for the last 3.5 years of my studies in engineering. So as a student watching this video, you've probably come across a lot of stuff online talking about these different productivity techniques, tricks, methods, and all these different things about how you're gonna get your perfect grades that you want, okay? But it can all get a little bit overwhelming. So this video isn't gonna talk about any trick or method or technique. It's just gonna talk about 3 habits that if you develop, you should start to build such a solid foundation that you can just expect your grades to grow. So the first habit to develop, and it shouldn't come as too much of a surprise, but that is sleep, okay? Good sleep is a superpower, and it's not just like the hours you sleep, it's the consistency you sleep. When you go to bed, when you wake up, it's the quality of your sleep. Like, are you sleeping the whole night? So there's so many aspects to look into when you're trying to optimize your sleep. And it's just so important as a student. The difference in your, presence during the day, the difference in your focus, the difference in like the quality of work that you produce, the amount of time you need to work to produce that quality of work changes drastically on days where you've had sufficient sleep, on days when you've had quality sleep, compared to days when you haven't. So yes, you should be getting, that 7-8 hours of sleep. Of course, everybody knows this, but also it's not just that, okay? You should be getting a consistent sleep, right? Not 12 to 8, and then the next day 10 to 6, and the next day you're up like 2 to 10. All those are 8 hours, right? That's 8 hours of sleep every time, but it's not consistent, okay? And when you have this inconsistent sleep, not only is it going to just mess up your sleep schedule in the future, because how can you expect to go to bed at maybe your 10 p.m. bedtime if you slept in until 10 a.m. this day, right? But also it reduces the quality of the time that you actually sleep. It reduces, the recovery you get from that sleep. And so if you really want to just be able to sit down and get quality work done and have an enjoyable day at school, then that starts with a quality sleep. I don't care how much work you have to do, right? Because you might say, oh, I have so much work to do. I'm going to stay up. I'm going to get this done. But realistically, okay, staying up to get that work done is just going to make you stupider for the next day. And the return on investment isn't there. You're choosing, right, to get some work done now. Okay, it's like a short-term reward. You get some work done that evening that you like, or that night that you stay up. But now tomorrow, because you're on less sleep, because you've, pushed back your bedtime, and now you're going to be on inconsistent sleep, maybe less hours of sleep. The next day, you're going to perform just that much worse, okay? So you've chosen to get, a little bit of work done tonight with the trade-off of getting poor work done tomorrow, okay? So think of sleep not just as like a time to rest, all right? Sleep is, is a multiplier. The better the sleep you have, the better day you have tomorrow, the better work you produce tomorrow, the better your training is going to be tomorrow, the better everything is going to be tomorrow, okay? So think of it like that, right? This isn't just like, oh, you know what, I'm going to stay up, I'm going to, get this work done, because you've got to think the longer term, all right? Sometimes it is necessary, you got the deadline, stay up, that's okay. But in most cases, there's no reason why you need to be pushing back your sleep and making it so inconsistent, because it's just going to affect you in the future. I remember recently, actually, there was a team report that we needed to complete for one of our courses, right? And so me and my team, we stayed up until 2, 3 a.m. editing this report, just making sure it was like really strong and solid. And of course, we had to do this. It was due the next day. That's poor time management on our part. But regardless, the effect that had on my, not only my, mood the next day, but just how I was feeling in the moment. Like I just never felt so sluggish. I couldn't imagine, getting good quality work done that next day, because I just had such poor energy. And that's not something you want to be taking in your day to day. So, it happens sometimes, you got to do it, but you shouldn't be voluntarily doing this to yourself just to squeeze in that extra 2 or 3 hours of studying if you don't need to, because it literally makes you more incapable of doing work, of training, of doing the things that bring you, quality fulfillment in your life. So just don't take that trade-off. Some people will say, I got an exam tomorrow, I'm going to stay up, I'm going to study for this. But also to that, I would say, do you really need to? Suppose you prepared properly, throughout the week, throughout the semester, you've been doing weekly practice, then the week comes and you're doing the practice test, you're doing, some practice problems, assignments, or whatever, okay? Now the night before the exam comes, okay, maybe you do, one more practice test and run through an assignment quickly, okay? Is there really any need to stay up until 12 a.m., 1 a.m. to continue studying at this point? Not at all, right? Because you've prepared properly throughout the year, throughout the week. Now the time comes, what's going to get you the best result on the exam? Is it going to be that extra hour of studying, or is it going to be that extra hour of sleep, right? It's obviously going to be that extra hour of sleep, because that extra hour of sleep is going to provide you with the recovery, with the energy you need in order to actually write the exam the next day, okay? So sleep, prioritize it. It's not something to be taken lightly. So if you're ever deciding between, that extra hour of studying or that extra hour of sleep, most of the time you take that extra hour of sleep, because it's going to give you, that energy boost. You're not going to feel so sluggish, and you get a boost in your cognitive function from doing that sleep. And that reward is so much better than, an extra hour of slow, tired studying because it's already 10 p.m., 11 p.m. at night and you're tired, right? So prioritize your sleep. And if you're wondering on, let's say you have poor sleep and you're trying to improve it, this is how I sleep in pretty much 30 seconds to a minute each night. Like I close my eyes and I'm asleep before I even have a thought in my brain. So there's 3 aspects to how I consistently sleep in literally 30 seconds. Starts by waking up at a good time. And this comes back to how I said in the morning that you should have good sleep consistency, right? Because if you don't have that consistency, your brain doesn't really know which hours you're supposed to be awake, doesn't know which hours you're going to be, asleep. Your body just doesn't know it, right? And so what you want to do is just get up at a consistent time, whether that's 7 a.m., 8 a.m., it could be, 12 p.m., whatever it is, all right? You could be on some strange schedule as long as you're consistent, all right? I like earlier because it lets you get up and get started on your day. And if you get up and you see the sun in the morning, you set your circadian rhythm better so that you can fall asleep better that night, okay? So that's the first aspect. Wake up, consistent time, okay? If you can, get up early, go outside, see the sun, spend some time out there, set your circadian rhythm. It's not just, the scientific benefit of it, it helps you sleep better. It's nice, it's enjoyable, okay? So that's step 1, get up at a decent time. Step 2 for how I fall asleep in 30 seconds is just doing things throughout the day. If you don't do anything during the day, if you take it easy, if you rest, if you, say, I'm not going to work as hard this day, I'm not going to train this day. Every time I've done this to myself, I have a poor sleep in the night, okay? Because you're not expending as much energy. So I remember one day last year, I was packing for a trip. I was going to go to Norway for a rocketry event with the European Space Agency. And so, I was packing for this trip and I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to train today. I'm just going to take it easy today. And what do you think happened at the end of the night? I didn't train. I didn't really work on anything. I just took it easy. And as a result, no sleep that night, okay? Or it was, delayed. It took time to fall asleep. And realistically, that's kind of what you would expect. In my eyes, you kind of need to earn the sleep during the day. If you want to have a quality sleep at night, you need to have that quality day where you put in work, you put in training, you've socialized, you've checked off all the boxes that lead to a good day. And at the end of the day, not only is your body going to be like, okay, you expended this energy, you're tired, you're going to fall asleep. Your brain is also going to be like, okay, you checked off this box, you checked off this box, you checked off this box, you had a great day, you got a lot done, you've earned the sleep, go to sleep, right? So that's the other thing I would say for me that has helped the most is just live a full, fulfilling day, because the days that I don't are the days that I don't sleep as well. So that's it. That's the second point. And the third tip I have to falling asleep quickly is just reading. Okay, so we've started our day well. We've woken up at a consistent time, saw the sun. We've lived a full, fulfilling day. We're going to be tired by this time, okay? But, 30 minutes before you go to bed, that's when I head to bed, okay? And I'll open a book and I will just read that book until, I can't read another line, okay? So that's just expending that little last bit of energy. I don't want to sit in bed and lay there until I fall asleep, so I will instead just read until I fall asleep. And the one thing I would say is that I don't read like nonfiction or improvement or any of that before I go to sleep, because I don't want ideas popping up into my brain and thinking, I got this idea, I got to get my phone, write down these notes. So before I sleep, I just read some fiction, okay? And that prevents, ideas popping up before I sleep, which is what you don't want. So that's what I do. That little 30 minutes at the end really helps me wind down from my work block. I would really suggest reading over, some other thing like TV or whatever it is, because reading is a very good hobby to have and you're not having any screens on, before you fall asleep. So quickly, that's how you can fall asleep faster if you are struggling. So that is the first habit for improving your performance in school, for getting better grades. Okay, it's sleep. All right, go to sleep. It is a superpower, it's a multiplier. It's going to make your day that much better. It's going to, control your energy levels, your mood, your recovery, and going into the day with a good sleep. When you wake up feeling rested, that's just a really nice place to be. So go to sleep. It's going to help your grades so much more than, that extra 2 hours of studying will do. Trust me. So the next habit to improve your academic performance, to improve your grades, improve, just how well you enjoy school, is to exercise, actually, okay? Exercise is one of the top habits you can develop, period. And it even has benefits when it comes to school, okay? I've done a whole another video about how, exercise and specifically weightlifting had improved my student life and my academic performance. But just generally, exercise boosts your mental, all right? And that's necessary for school. The better the mental you have, the better you're going to perform in school, the less you're going to procrastinate, the more energy you're going to have to actually do the work that you set out to do. There are studies that show not only is there a boost in cognitive performance, there's also a decrease in stress that comes from exercise. There's also correlation between, going to the gym more and just having an improved GPA. It's literally, students who went to the gym more had a higher GPA in this study, okay? And personally, I've seen a big effect just on my life from increasing the amount of exercise I do, okay? I always used to think that I didn't have time to train. I didn't have time to exercise. I didn't have time to go to the gym. But eventually I just started, okay? I still had that thought that I didn't have the time, but I started anyways, okay? I just decided, you know what? Let's see how it goes, okay? And every time I added more physical activity into my life, my academic performance only got better, all right? I was getting the same grades in less time. So the benefit is really there. And especially when you find something, when you find, some exercise that really energizes you, that you really enjoy, that's what you want to be doing. That's what's going to give you that energy, that mental boost, that sense of accomplishment, which you can then take into your studies to perform so much better, right? Because a lot of people think that it's, a productivity method or technique or trick that's going to, get you the A pluses, that's going to get you the good grades. But realistically, it's not that. It's just having a good mental, being in a good mood, having good energy levels. This is really what's going to take you the furthest distance. This is how the top students are able to accomplish things, right? It's because they go to the gym, they go for runs, they, have hobbies, they have friends, they have all these things, right? Good things that bring them energy in their life, that boost their mood, that boost their mental, all right? And then they can take that into school, okay? And once you have that boosted mental, right, you're gonna be that much less likely to procrastinate, that much less likely to be undisciplined and skip the work. You're gonna be that much better, or you're gonna have that much better focus, all right? And so if there's one thing that's going to help you do better in school, it's boosting your mental. That's it, all right? And that's what you'll see on this list. I've given you sleep, exercise, and the next habit that'll help you, improve your studies. They're not some technique, they're not some method. They're just good habits that will boost your mental, because that's what's going to have the biggest, largest effect on improving not only how well you perform in school, but how much you enjoy the school itself, and how much fulfillment you get from your days, all right? Because that's really what you want, right? You don't want good grades if it's going to make you miserable, and if you have to study for 12 hours a day. It's just not there. 95% of people would not enjoy that. And so you need to be incorporating things into your life that energize you, that boost your mood, that boost your mental. And exercise is one of the things that is most proven to do that. So that's why that's there. And personally for me, I'll even take this as far as, going to the gym right before my exams, or going for walks right before my exams. These are things that are just integrated into my routine because I like them. They boost my mental, they give me energy, and then that lets me take that into the exams to perform even better. And quickly, as an added benefit, not only is exercise good for everything I just mentioned, but it also just helps you sleep better, right? Because I was talking about earlier in sleep how, when I didn't train, when I didn't expend as much energy, of course you don't sleep as well. So earn that sleep, all right? And how do you do that? Train hard, work hard, have a good day, okay? So that's the bonus right there. Exercise will help you sleep better as well. So that was the second habit to develop, and that was exercise. Now, the third habit to develop is probably also one that you've heard, but I want to, dig into it a little bit deeper, all right? And that is just stop scrolling, okay? Apart from the time that is spent scrolling, right? Like some people, it's not unreasonable nowadays. People have, 7-hour screen time, okay? But that doesn't necessarily seem, the worst. It's like, oh, 7 hours, it was this scrolling, it wasn't just messaging, it wasn't just scrolling, it was other things, right? But 7 hours a day is 160 days a year, and it's, close to half of your waking hours. So if that is scrolling, obviously that's terrible. That's instantly going to make you think like, wow, this is a lot of time. But even if it's not, okay, even if, only half of that is scrolling and then half of it is productive on your phone, it's still 106 days a year. Do you want to spend 106 days a year on a screen and not, in your life? Probably not. So I just want to let that, number sink in, because that's huge. It's just not there, right? Like, is that really peak? Is that really, what you are here for? To spend a third of every year on a small screen? Probably not. So stopping scrolling is really one of the biggest things that can help you as a student, because it's not just the time. I know I just mentioned the time, and I wanted to emphasize how much, 7 hours a day or 6 hours a day looks in the scope of a big year, but it's not just the time, right? Because scrolling really negatively impacts your dopamine receptors, all right? Short form content is just really bad for this because it trains your brain to want instant, large spikes in your stimulus and in dopamine, right? And so what do you think happens when you're constantly on your phone, constantly scrolling, constantly being stimulated by short form content? Well, all of a sudden, right? Well, short form content is a very highly stimulating activity, right? Is studying? No, studying is a very, low stimulating activity, okay? So if your brain is always desiring that highly stimulating activity, is it ever going to enjoy even remotely the lower stimulating activity of studying? No, it's just how it works, okay? And so when you are constantly, frying your dopamine receptors, going up here, getting that dopamine boost, that dopamine hit from scrolling on Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is, okay? You are actively making yourself enjoy studying less. You're making yourself not want to study by over consuming on social media. And now because you don't enjoy studying, whenever you do sit down to study, it's just going to drain you so much more. It's not going to be an enjoyable experience. And so are you going to be inclined, to want to study if it's something that drains you, if it's something that you don't enjoy? Probably not, right? But on the other side, you've probably had times where, some aspect of your work, of your studies, don't feel as dull, don't feel as boring, all right? And so you sit down and you actually kind of enjoy studying or enjoying doing the assignment or something like this, right? There's probably some aspect that you can think of that you enjoy to an extent, okay? If all of your studies, if all of your work was like that, you would be much more inclined to actually do the work. You'd be much less inclined to procrastinate. You'd have much better focus. You'd be able to, enjoy the work that much more. So if we want to have this happen more, if we want all of our work to be like this, or most of our work to be like this, then the way to do that is to stop the highly stimulating activities, because really these are what's going to drain you so much more when it comes to making you enjoy, the rest of your life so much less. And that includes studying, that includes the gym, that includes hobbies like going for a walk, right? You're not going to enjoy going for a walk as much if you're constantly used to scrolling on Instagram and getting that high stimulation. But if you remove that high stimulation, now going on a walk is kind of fun. And so you just got to remove the highly stimulating activities. Just live like a human. Go and get your social interaction with others. You don't need to get that from a phone, right? Because when you get your social interaction from others, that's going to be so much more rewarding anyways. That's going to energize you, and you're going to be able to take that good energy into your work, all right? But when you get that social interaction, that, false social interaction from social media, that doesn't energize you, and it just makes you enjoy the work less in the long run. It drains you in the long run, and it really, like I said, we were talking about how improving your mental is really what's going to, improve your grades, improve your academic performance. And obviously we all know that, media in general is not good, or overconsumption of media is not good for your mental. And so that's the third point, is to just stop scrolling, limit your media use, especially with short form content. That's especially bad for you. However, even with long form content, okay, even if educational stuff that you're looking at maybe on Instagram or on YouTube or something, you even got to limit this, all right? Because in these situations, you can easily get, sucked in and think that you're being productive, that you're learning, that you're, educating yourself. And to an extent you are, okay? But you're still, spending time on the screen. And like I said, those 106 days in a year, do you want that to be you? You're still spending those hours on the screen. And even, that short form educational content that you might see on Instagram, it's not that educational. Think about the last, reel, this educational reel that you remembered, actually, that you remembered a tip from. If you have some good, okay, but, most of the time, you just don't remember it. And so just limit your media consumption, because not only do you save all that time, which you can put into school, put into the gym, put into your friends, right? You also just get that mental boost, right? You're no longer frying your dopamine receptors. You're no longer desensitizing your brain with, super overstimulating content all the time. So that's the third habit to develop to improve your grades, all right? Limit your scrolling, limit your media use. Once you do this, you should just see a lot of time free up, okay? And the other side is that you should just see your mental improving. And like I said earlier, better mental means you get, less desire to procrastinate, better focus, and all the other things that you're going to get that is really going to be the things that help you study better, to help you perform better, and to enjoy your academic, journey more. So I hope this video helps you, and that you can implement one of these three habits, start building them up, and that you can start seeing some results.